at our session, speaking about promoting the integration of women in energy as professionals, as entrepreneurs. Energy and Utilities Africa Digital Event has arranged a very exciting, informative program over the 2 days between today and tomorrow. So make sure that you catch other sessions. To kickstart our discussion this afternoon, I would just like to share something very interesting I read 2 years ago in one of the reports, where one of the leaders actually said, in the energy sector, where women entrepreneurs make up just 2% of the population, as it was at the time in West Africa, it's not ideal. And I was quite inspired by this proclamation, understanding that women's participation as entrepreneurs in the energy sector, supplying products, solutions, and systems across the energy value chain, has the potential to contribute across multiple sustainable development goals. As entrepreneurs, they create decent, sustainable employment, which contributes to the Sustainable Development Goal number 8. That particular goal also gives a contribution to Sustainable Development Goal number 1, which is the alleviation of poverty. It also means that governments and private sector and other social stakeholders that support the participation of women in the energy space also help each country to contribute towards the Sustainable Development Goal number 5, which is gender mainstreaming, gender equality in each sector. In this particular case, we're speaking about the energy sector. And therefore, we see the promotion of women participation in the energy space as truly an economic imperative. As the sector responds to challenges of clean energy, reliable and affordable energy services, there are emerging pathways to close the identified gender gaps and bolster performance across the energy value chain by including women as potential employees, as leaders in utilities, in government, and as entrepreneurs, even as consumers, as we pursue universal access to electricity on our continent. Today, we have 2 great speakers who are going to share practical ways based on their experience in their respective areas on how we can achieve an accelerated level of women participation in the industry, especially that utilities and governments are pursuing 4th industrial revolution innovations as they modernize their energy systems. That is indeed birthing new value chains. We have Ms. Sophia Key, a senior sustainability consultant from AESG. She's going to speak about the convergence of energy and architecture in the built environment, especially in property development in urban and peri-urban areas, to highlight innovation in energy and how it's changing property development. We also, she's also going to speak to the technology itself that she is working with and her experience as a professional in the area, also highlighting some interesting entrepreneurial opportunities in the specific area. Sophia, please continue.
Thank you, Bertha, for the introduction and allowing me to participate in such an exciting discussion on the energy sector and female participation in a growing, vibrant industry. I'm dialing in from Dubai. It's a lovely sunny afternoon. It's lovely to be here. Thank you. I'll start first around the question, is the energy sector providing enough opportunities for women in the region? I work in the built environment sector for AESG, and there's plenty of strong female leaders working across buildings and environmental projects here in Dubai. We also have global offices in Saudi Arabia and in London. The AESG representation is across 15 countries, and around of which 33% of our employees are female, and 44% of the senior management are female. So we have, you know, quite a decent balance, but, you know, could do better in the senior management space. Our built environment accounts for a very large proportion of energy consumption related to both construction and operations of our built assets. As a sustainability consultant for AESG, I have varied multiple opportunities within my practice to reduce energy consumption in buildings and master plans, as well as providing the infrastructure for energy generation in multiple formats. So from building integrated PVs or alternative energy sources such as solar hot water capture, particularly here in the Middle East. Coming from an architectural technology background myself, I had 30 males in my class and I was the only female. This made me realize from the outset of my career really that I needed to push my education and industry experience to ensure my voice was heard. And pretty soon after graduating, I left the UK and moved to China to work in China there. Luckily, I had some great mentors who realized and supported my potential and ultimately allowed me to complete my master's in energy and sustainable building design whilst working in China and Vietnam on some mega projects in developing countries. It was during this time I realized how much work needed to be done in the environmental design sector, whilst balancing that rapid need for expansion and the client requirements and local regulations. So the main driver there was build fast, build quickly, build cheaper. So in order to make sure that energy and sustainability was incorporated, we really had to kind of not just look at buildability and cost, but also change the client's agenda. So that involved being, you know, a very adaptive person, very personable and very evidence-based when we were proposing any measures that weren't particularly on the client's agenda at the time. Since moving to the Middle East and managing projects, I've seen multiple opportunities for growth in the energy sector. In particular, looking firstly at great design by reducing energy usage within the building and integrating technology within our built assets. So for me, it isn't just about producing energy within a building. It's looking at passive and active measures, firstly, to reduce the reliance on energy as a resource. So I'm very lucky. I'm able to work with clients, you know, from the outset. So when the first pen is put to paper and we're looking at the design and we're looking at what we can do, what the client wants, what we need to do locally, what others are doing in the region. And I feel my global experience allows me to really push the bar and ask, why are we doing this? But how can we be doing things differently? So environmental analysis is a key part of this. We use parametric modeling, utilizing local climate data to understand the environment. So that's the sun path, the wind direction, the wind temperature, how we design the building massing, how we position the outdoor spaces, what will our glazing look like, where should it best be located? And this really allows us to understand energy demands within a project before anything is built. Thereafter, we would look at suitable technologies to support these energy demands. So can the water be passively heated? Can the mechanical systems be PV powered? Can our lighting be provided firstly by natural daylight and then supplemented by intelligent and smart systems that utilize motion detection or, you know, light detection systems within the space? For all of our projects, we run energy modeling. This isn't just a requirement by LEED or the main certifications, but it gives us a very good understanding to see how the predicted energy consumption will be at early stages of the design. We can also pinpoint which systems are utilizing or requiring the most amount of energy, and then look at how we reduce that. So it really allows our design work to understand the impact of the energy and the requirements for our buildings. Then after we've done all of this leaning with the energy, the first step, we look at how we will integrate renewables within the building. So working with the design and the architects, understanding their look and feel. Obviously, when integrating PV within glazing, for example, it would change the appearance of the glass. So actually working with all of those stakeholders to understand, yes, we can generate energy, but this will be the knock-on effect. And then we look at integrating smart technologies, such as integrating systems with the building monitoring systems and connectivity with the grid. So smart cities are the future when it comes to ensuring energy resilience in our built assets. So we're seeing more and more the drive of the connectivity of energy demand and reducing energy tariffs during low demand periods. So this can be particularly effective in cities in securing energy supplies, for example. We're also seeing more drives for smart technologies being integrated within buildings. For example, heating and cooling systems that could be managed and controlled using your telephone, working based on where you are. Are you at home or have you left your home? Allowing these smart systems to really allow our buildings to reduce the amount of energy that we utilize in terms of lighting, cooling, heating, as well as making sure that we have secure and smart homes. So this is kind of the drive and the direction that we're seeing at the moment with our built assets currently. Opportunities in the UAE exist for us. Across my department, we have a lot of women, many women working in the environmental and sustainability divisions. So, we've come from around the world. We're living and working here in the UAE. We have, I think probably at least 15 countries, that UK, Lebanon, Asia. We have a lot of global talent here in the UAE, and I think that's fantastic because most of the individuals here are very, well educated and have a very good understanding academically of their subjects, be it health and well-being in buildings or energy creation and demand. So there's lots of opportunities here. We mainly work on projects that have varying certification requirements. So, for example, if we're doing a project here in the UAE, the codes and certification will be crafted and tailored to the location. And that, again, comes in with the energy requirements for the building. It would be based on the locality of the building. So what are the natural resources? What are the main demands for energy? And how we reduce and generate energy based on those demands within the building. My next question would be around the providing mentoring and support for the younger generation. So myself, I've been engaged with some of the universities locally. We always look for talented graduates to come and join us here at AESG. So it's really great to have those graduates come through and be a mentor for them. We recently had a young female graduate join AESG, and it really is a pleasure seeing her grow in the industry and learning every day, supporting on project work together. So there are multiple opportunities there.
Thank you, Sophia. I can see that your experience is vast across a number of countries. I just would like, there's a question that we have received, and I would like you to have a think about it. Do you really think that the energy industry is dealing with an image problem with women? And this is from Noha, and I'm hoping I'm understanding the question correctly, that seeing that traditionally the energy field has always been male dominated, the lack of female role models, would you see that as a deterrent for other women to participate in the sector?
I think a gender diverse future is one where we see more women in the boardrooms. So this allows women to make business decisions, to empower other women, and to seek female talent within the company. So, creating and making supportive HR policy decisions and inspiring women just like them to come and, be valued and supported within the workplace. I think typically, if we look back at my career, I have been within the construction industry. It is very, male driven. It has been for many years. And I think obviously, as women, we can't hold ourselves back thinking that there's no one there that looks like me. In fact, for me, that motivates me to get better, and that motivates me to educate myself more and to read more, so that I can, make a difference and feel valued within the workplace and give myself more opportunities.
Sure. Do you want to share a little bit about your relationship with your mentor when you were working on mega multinational projects? How did that go?
Yeah, I mean, when we were on such big projects, we were in the office a lot. We spent a lot of time together as a team. And I think there's that cohesiveness and closeness that you get when you're working together with, people for a long duration. My mentor was always very good at asking questions. I think a good mentor not only leads from the top down, but also leads from the bottom up. Learning from us fresh graduates and listening to what we had to say is just as important as us needing and enjoying them coming into the room in the morning and saying, oh, have you thought about this? And how about that, So I think it's a good mentor is one that both listens, but also guides. I think that's what my mentor was to me. He never made me feel like any question was a silly question.
Fantastic. I want to turn the dimension a little bit from being a professional in the energy space to hear your thoughts around entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs in the energy space across the value chain of the solution that you are providing currently. What is your experience? Are you seeing a lot of women entrepreneurs entering the space? And if not, what do you think is the barrier?
I see a lot of women at the younger graduate age, and then it gets to around 30 when it's time to have families and children, and then there's less women, and then they come back later. And I think the barrier to that is having a workforce that focuses on equal rights and promotion and pay, as well as a fair hiring process. We know the construction industry is very male dominated. So my company, we advocate gender equality and participate a lot in women construction campaigns. So we hope this allows acquisition leaders to attract female talent to come and join the company. I think it's very common for women to place their careers on hold following their decision to have children. I think this is a contributing factor to why we see some gender disparity, particularly in senior management and leading positions. I think it goes by the company's merit and fairness policies that women are well represented in senior positions, as well as having a good ease into motherhood and giving female employees the confidence that the hard work and progress that they have made in their careers will be safeguarded once they come back. And I think this also works hand in hand in allowing men to have more opportunities to engage with their families. So, longer paternity pay, flexible working hours, and it's just as important to allow their wives to work outside of the home equally, I feel.
Thanks. You've actually just answered one of the questions that has just come from Noha as well.
Yes.
How are workplace practices, policies, and regulations helping attract more women into the energy workforce? And I think by sharing your testimony around your environment and the fairness of recruitment and supportive policies, you've just answered that. There is also another question from Catherine that says, how can we encourage young females to consider a career in the energy industry?
I think there's lots of opportunities for young females. If we look across the board, we've got a good representation of females within the industry. And also, I think that gap of females is a good challenger and a good motivator to young females to say, I want to be there. I want my voice to be heard.
Great, great. And you have said yourself, you're mentoring a couple of graduates?
Yes.
Fantastic. Congratulations. Thank you so much, Sophia.
Thank you for your time, Bertha.
You're most welcome for sharing your experience in a sector that is not often spoken about, the convergence of energy and property development and how smart technologies are totally revolutionizing that area. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Ms. Kiliadile Seduke, who is the founder of Women in Energy Botswana. She's a public speaker and a renewable energy enthusiast. Promoting universal access to electricity is a priority for sub-Saharan Africa, where at least more than 600 million people still don't have access to energy. And renewable energy and distributed energy resources will play a pivotal role in Africa's electrification drive. The sector is also one of the most capital-intensive industries, requiring large capital expenditures. Even before COVID-19 pandemic hit, which devastated a lot of economies in the world, including Africa, it was quite clear, even through literature and just experience, that women were facing insurmountable barriers as entrepreneurs on the continent, ranging from adverse social and cultural norms to what was estimated to about $42 billion US financing gap when you look at women entrepreneurs that were receiving finance versus their male counterparts. This is despite the fact that women in Africa are leading, not only in Africa. In fact, they say the highest rate of women entrepreneurship or adult entrepreneurial activity is found in Africa, where 27% of the female population is involved in some form of entrepreneurial activity. So Kiliadile, I'm very happy to have you on board. I am aware of the wonderful work that you are doing in promoting the participation of women in energy in Botswana. I would like for you to share with us your views on the developments in the renewable energy space, renewable energy innovation and its integration into the main grid, and opportunities that are coming up for entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, to consider to participate in.
Okay, thank you so much, Bertha. I'm happy to be here and to share on such a sensitive topic. And, you know, I'll just get right into it. With renewable energy is a rapidly growing investment, I would say. It's a young sector, but we've just seen over, you know, countries globally, it's really a rapidly growing investment, and you know, we all need to jump on board. The pandemic, you know, one thing it's taught us when everything just was shut down and we had national lockdowns, is to be self-sufficient as countries, self-reliable. And, you know, in the case of Botswana, that would include, you know, driving towards generating our own power through solar energy so that we can reduce dependency on our imports. And, you know, we've seen growth. The Ministry of Energy, through their department, have they recently released guidelines that they called the rooftop solar guidelines, and these are, you know, purposefully to assist you know, end consumers to be able to integrate PV systems at their residences or their place of businesses like their lodges, and be able to feed into the grid. I think this moving, you know, forward, I think this is a great, you know, step, a great innovation to integrate power into the grid. You know, in our country, there's only one supplier of power, the main power supply, you know, the power corporation, and to be able to just feed into the grid and be able to gain financially from that when your system is, you know, is producing more than the demand for your residents. is a great opportunity. So I think this is definitely a great development. It's a great stride. It's due to start, and so I'm hoping to see many young people, especially the graduates, as Sophia Key has been saying, to be able to just tap into this, and it could be a way for them to be energy independent as well. And when we also speak of technological innovation, we have to bring in the policy perspective. There has to be policies that will guide the developments that are coming up. And regulators of energy in countries need to be very firm. They also need to include gender mainstreaming into our policies. Women are they have a very entrepreneurial spirit, because women are providers. And so when you give access to such things as energy, you will see that women will not only keep it to themselves, but they'll pour it down to the generations after them or below them, and that includes their children, and they teach their children to teach other children. So it's when we give or include women in energy access, we could see even greater and more significant development and innovation. And another aspect I wanted to touch on is integrating renewable energy with agriculture. Food security, that's when we talk about food security, food being a basic need. It's important to develop solutions and innovations that will guide countries towards food security. And if we integrate it with renewable energy, we are sure of an uninterruptible supply, because renewable energy is not finite, and so you'll always have something producing. And so in the case of Botswana, again, we know that agriculture here provides a livelihood for more than 80% of the population, but it's said that 36% of farm holders are women, yet they're not educated enough to be the decision makers. And so you'll find that at some point of the chain, there's a stumbling block. And so that's another thing that we need to do. We need to equip women in the more rural and remote areas. And we could do that primarily with agriculture, because they're already farmers. And so, it could also help the younger kids who go to school there, because if we have a setup that integrates renewable energy and agriculture, and they're able to produce crop, they're able to sell crop, the women, it capacitates them to be entrepreneurs. And the school-going kids can also visit such facilities to learn and become more energy aware of renewable energy and such and the like. And so small scale.
Yes, I wanted to spend a bit of time around the point you've just highlighted, which is more access to information, access to skills development that would empower women entrepreneurs. And I just wanted to look at another question before you move on to your next point. What country do you see as leading the regulation opportunities available for women in the sector? This is by Lorena, so we're going to get to that question. I wanted, access to skills development for women and as a supportive measure to enable accelerated participating in the energy space has been highlighted as being very significant. Being the founder of Women in Energy in Botswana, Have you been involved in skills development programs? And if so, what was your experience? What was the uptake and what results did you see?
All right. As women in energy, we've definitely, done what we can to involve ourselves with the younger generation. We've visited primary schools, nonprofit organizations that house young children, just to, talk about the STEM field and incite interest in the STEM field. And, you'll get a balance of responses. Some of the response will be really great and they'll be really interested, where some of the response they tend to be a bit shy, because it's almost like, it's almost as if it's a new topic. You're asking a girl to do something they know as manly and tough. So they definitely do get a little bit shy around the topic. But with more visits, which becomes now grooming them, inciting that interest, there's definitely growth. And in our education system, you sort of pick the subjects that you want to do moving up. Moving up the education ladder. And so if we begin at a much younger age, and we open up their minds to a much larger pool of opportunity, where they can start picking STEM fields as their subjects, compared to what the normal is, what they know or have been taught to be the normal.
Tell me, you're also an engineer by training, right?
Right.
So there's an interesting question that says, what country do you see as leading the regulation and or opportunities available for women in the sector? When you look at the regulation of the energy sector, it's quite broad, the introduction of policies. But I suppose we can look at the integration of renewable energy, which is the topic you have been on. Which country do you look to that is leading in policy development to support integration of renewable energy?
Mm-hmm. I will speak on there's a woman that I follow, and there's quite a lot of women I follow on LinkedIn who are in the energy field, and my attention was drawn to a particular one in Nigeria. And she's into green investment, credit schemes, which I feel are also one of the main barriers to women developing their own projects or becoming entrepreneurs, because you'll just see that when a woman comes with a business plan and a man comes with a business plan, there's more confidence on the man. And so when we have policies and women who are already up there in that kind of field, it'll definitely help turn the direction to women a bit more. And so I've also seen participation in South Africa. There's quite a number of organizations that I'm seeing come up where women are able to participate in the energy industry.
Fantastic, fantastic. Tell me, as an entrepreneur as well, what do you find is the most pressing challenge in the energy space that you believe is common across the spectrum?
Definitely what's common is the inability to be more participative on the field. Because you'll find that when you're hired in an energy company, every time you want to be on the field, that's something I've experienced as well. If I want to be on the field and do the actual installations, the guys are always worried about, will you drop it? Will it fall on you? Will you fall from a height? And so they, when they think or believe they're protecting you, from you harming yourself or being harmed. They're actually depriving you of doing the actual field installation work. And so I tend to believe that's the most common area of difficulty when you're in the industry, is actually, as a woman being on the ground and having the men around trust you with completing an installation, for example.
So it's actually social norms. I think it's a point we
Definitely
highlighted earlier, that some of the challenges that women entrepreneurs find, you gave an example that when you present a business plan and
right.
your counterpart presents a business plan, you have the feeling that their business plan is looked upon with more confidence than yours, purely because of the social norms and perhaps the cultural norms that have dominated our social existence. And this is across literature. When we research about gender equity, gender equality, and gender mainstreaming, these are the results that you find, that we have to dismantle these this ceiling that has been created by cultural and social norms that imply that women are incapable of participating successfully in the energy space. You were going to share, you were going to continue to share about another sector that you had considered for women's participation.
Sorry, please repeat that.
You were going to share, I interjected earlier, you were going to go on to a different topic around women's participation in the energy space beyond agriculture.
Oh, okay.
The convergence of agriculture and energy.
Yeah, no, definitely. Solar energy integration is high up there because of just how much sun we receive. And then agriculture is very close to it. We've seen our government deploy incentives and schemes just to sort of help, especially young people, to participate. And I think that's definitely something that the young graduates can do. And just speaking on opportunities that exist in the industry for women entrepreneurs, like I said before, renewable energy is a young market, our young sector. So there's definitely a number of things that are untapped, when you just look at the rooftop solar guidelines that were deployed, you begin to think around that. For an individual to be able to have a system and integrate that, what do they need? And there's for companies as well to reduce their power consumption, what do they need? So you ask yourselves those questions, and you come up with energy management and efficiency, energy audits for companies. So there's in that direction, there's a lot of untapped potential when it comes to the energy industry, as well as sorry.
While you're finding your notes, and I'll give you a chance to just catch up. It's always fascinating to be in a discussion like this. We've got an interesting question which says, what do you think is the way forward to improve gender diversity? And I want us to talk about key things that have been highlighted as ways to support women's participation in the energy space and access to information. How have you experienced access to credible market information as either a barrier or an enabler?
My group and I, we were actually on, doing a project proposal or a project plan that will just give us a few numbers or statistics to see just, the female participation in corporates and industries in our country. And, the access to information was very difficult. It's not easy. but you definitely just have to keep pushing through. And I believe that to help women, push through the industry or to increase participation, I believe it really starts from, early ages, early stages. First off, in Botswana, we have a university, a research focused or research-based university that has the program Energy Engineering. That's where I graduated. And it's a new profession to come from a university in the country. And I think in that aspect, we've done well. Now the challenge, or something to improve, would be the transition from being a graduate, a woman graduate in an engineering field, to the corporate world. And as Sophia highlighted, mentorship really helps greatly. Having a female role model really helps greatly, who is up the ladder, who is able to just guide and shape your career path. Is really important. And so to have, and platforms such as these ones, and networking platforms where as a graduate, if you want to participate, should be able to participate in these platforms, these webinar series. You just look out for them, connect, and just have a listen as to what other women are dealing with, how they're dealing with it, how they're able to climb up the ladder. Because sometimes you might not be able to find a role model close to you, but if you watch webinars and you follow webinars and career profiles, you're able to maybe teach yourself. And so I think really I'm fairly young in the sector, and so I will say having women much up the ladder, look down and source the younger people, the graduates, to say, I'm just going to adopt this person and teach them, and then just have information trickle down like that. It could really help increase participation for women in the industry.
Sure. So you've highlighted access to information as one of the key pillars to accelerate participation of women. You've highlighted access to networks in the industry as a key enabler. You've also highlighted access to skills development as an enabler. There's an interesting question that has just come from Enoch. He says, based on experiences or industry insights or opinions of the speakers, what would they say as the 2 or 3 areas in renewable energy sector jobs that are truly challenging for women to venture in? Or are there any such? Or is it possible for 100% boot for boot for women versus men? So it's an interesting question indeed, because it speaks to what is it in the renewable energy sector that could be perceived as an absolute limitation for women to participate in the sector. Sophia, I would like to invite you back into the conversation as well, because this is quite an interesting question. And I think as we near the close of our time, it will be interesting to bring it, to just discuss around this. But I also wanted to add 3 other areas that are key enablers to women participation in the energy space. Access to finance is a huge challenge. We mentioned earlier that the energy sector is a high capital intensive sector, and therefore participation in the sector requires that you have access to finance. Access to finance requires that you can demonstrate sustainable cash flows, or you have assets that financiers can believe you are a bankable entity or a project. Access to market, favorable procurement processes that enable women's participation. That is also an enabler in the market. Access to technology to on trade. As we know, the energy space, especially on the continent, is dominated by large multinational corporates that have existed for more than 150 years, providing services, solutions, products, equipment, and building the electricity grid on the continent. So coming to the energy space as a new player, access to technology is key, even if you are trading as a channel partner. Now, coming to this interesting question, is there anything that you would identify as an absolute limitation for women to participate in the energy space? I will give Kiliadile a break. Sophia, do you want to take a chance with this question?
I think, as you say, the biggest obstacle is not the ideas, it's not the motivation, it's not the the hunger to do something and the hunger for change. I think it comes down to finance. I think it comes down to taking a risk and doing something that's new and different, where a traditional job, for example, might be a bit more secure. And I think this is the biggest obstacle, is the risk involved with starting up, especially in an industry where you may not get a lot of return to begin with. So it's just that, the chicken and the egg scenario. Without the investment, how do you begin? But you need to give it a try because it's something that you want to do. And it's a tricky question to answer, to be honest. And I think that's probably why we're having this discussion today, because there's multiple obstacles in the way here.
Yeah. Do you wanna add to that contribution, Kiliadile?
Yeah, sure. I think I do agree with Sophia, and I'll add on to that to say that I think one of the other obstacles is being trusted as the decision maker. Sometimes you're able to climb up the ladder because of the decisions that you make that are able to steer the boat in the right direction. But if you're not heard when you speak, just for the mere fact that you're a woman, you're unable to be able to be given the opportunity or the position to steer the boat, and that can be limiting. But we overcome that by being entrepreneurs and just steering our own little boat and keep moving forward to build a bigger boat eventually. But when you're a graduate and you seek employment and you're an employee rather than an employer, having a voice can be very your voice being suppressed can be very limiting.
Sure. So to give an answer to Enoch, who posted this question, our speakers are confident that there is nothing that limits women's participation in the renewable energy or in the energy space at large, except for market forces that are beyond their control, such as having sufficient resources to manage the risk at hand, having access to finance, having access to skills development, having access to technology, all those ingredients that make an entity competitive, that enables an entity to present value to the utility customer or a residential customer or a commercial customer. So that concludes our answer to that very interesting question. We have yet another question that says, do you think women are encouraged enough to take up opportunities in the energy sector? Let's start with Sophia again.
Are we encouraged enough? It's a very good question. I think obviously in an emerging market or something that's new, fresh and new, you've got to be self-driven. I think these things propel when you are self-driven. I don't feel at any point in my career I was encouraged. It was kind of me pushing my way up into this thing. So I don't think we are encouraged enough. I think it depends also if you have what type of family you have in a way. Are you encouraged to do something new and something different, or do they want you to do what they did for generations before? So for me, it's more about paving my own way and pushing from the bottom up rather than relying on encouragement, you know?
Thank you, Sophia. Gileadile?
Yes, surely. Speaking from, coming from, the family side, definitely the encouragement there will lean more towards what is traditional or what is known, because being in the STEM field is a little bit foreign, and so you have to be driven enough as a young girl to pursue that. And in terms of governments, I think. I think our government lays out policies and schemes to sort of, involve the participation of young people at large. So that'll be men and women. And so as a woman, you will, the incentive is there, the policy is there, the scheme is there, but as a woman, you will have to, again, drive yourself to push even further, because at the point where there's a man and there's a woman, and there's only one fund for one participant or person, that's when now you have to, do what you can to be persuasive and confident enough to secure what you need to. So at the end of the day, it's self-driven.
I also think that the energy sector for many years has been a mysterious sector, isn't it? Because we don't have value chain conversations around the dinner table or amongst friends. We do not ask the question on how electricity is generated, transmitted, distributed, and ends up in our homes, and what are those entrepreneurial opportunities that exist across each one of those value chains. And I think through having these conversations, not only in the energy sector, in any sector really, that says, I am sitting at my office, I'm sitting on a chair, I've got a desk. Do I understand the value chain that brought the desk to my office? And do I see those components as entrepreneurial opportunities where I can participate? And I think when we change the conversations, the content of our conversations around entrepreneurial opportunities, that's when we will see a lot of excitement and encouragement for women and our youth to participate in sectors that they may not have considered before. Thank you so much, Gileadile and Sophia, for this wonderful conversation that we have had in the last hour, just under an hour. This brings us to the close of our discussion. And before I do that, I see we have 2 more questions which we can quickly accommodate. Can you please advise on ways to start up independently as a woman in the energy sector is the one question. The one is it possible to transition to renewable energy as a career if one lacks the experience in the sector? For example, from law to renewable energy. So I'm going to split this question. I'm going to take the first question. Can you please advise on ways to start independently as a woman in the energy sector? Give it to Gileadile. We literally have 6 minutes, so I'm going to split it 3 minutes each. And then the next question will go to Sophia, which talks to career transitions.
Okay, yeah, I'll begin with my question and just say that, like I was saying before, and like you were just saying, Bertha, is there a conversation around how this power is in the house? And, I'll just say the same thing, that to start or to even have an idea, you can ask yourself questions around what interests you, or questions around a new policy, or questions around a new technological development. And when you ask yourself questions around those, you tend to create solutions. You will see a gap. You will find a gap that needs a solution. And as a energy entrepreneur, you can find ways to provide for that solution. And so after you find that idea, I would say build a prototype, build a prototype, have something small and workable, because when you have a proposal and it's just fury against one that has something that is practical, you can go further when you have a prototype or something that is practical. A lot of people like to see things, a visionary, so you visualize your idea and you want to see it. So that's just one of the ways that you can really begin and get into the industry. Have a prototype, ask yourself questions and create a solution. There's so many solutions, there's so many gaps.
I would also like to add that spend a lot of time researching about an industry, understand who the players are, who the stakeholders are, what the regulations are that you are required to comply with, what the gaps are in the market, and what utilities, what governments, what commercial customers and residential customers are looking for. Find out who those suppliers are. Find out if you can partner with them. Find out if they can be your technology partner. Understand the procurement processes. Download information, visit websites of utilities, look at how they publish tenders, look at the tender documents, look at the specifications that are required within the tender documents, and start building that knowledge for yourself. Partner with established organizations where you believe you can add value. Learn from experiencing, from being within an organization on how to deliver a solution. Understand who the financing partners are, understand how they finance energy projects, research, go to their websites, download their documents, how their application documents for funding, understand what their demands are, speak to people, build a network of entrepreneurs in the sector that can share their testimonies. Sophia, career transition, moving from law to energy.
I'm not quite sure how to follow that, Bertha. That was incredible. Yeah, I would say the same, actually. If you want to make a career transition, I think, to be honest, it's all about the knowledge that you have and the passion that you have for the subject. I mean, typically, you would expect to go in at entry level if you wanted to change from, law to renewable energy. I think you've got to be willing to take a career step down if you're already quite a senior position, for example. But just to research and read and to learn as much as you can about the subject. Bertha gave an incredible list of reading and research that you can do based on your locality and understanding exactly how it works with your area. But also, once you have that passion, and once you have that understanding and that knowledge, it only takes one conversation with the decision maker to give you your chance and your opportunity to get in there and to transition into a new industry and to find someone that would support your career choice and your career progression. So yeah, I think it's all about passion, research, and adaptability.
Thank you, Sophia. Just to complement your contribution, if you are a legal expert, or if you're a professional in the legal field, the energy sector also requires legal services. And that could be a natural progression for you to understand the regulatory regime of the energy sector and to see where you can add value as a way of entering the sector. I started as a marketing communication specialist many years ago, and only 8 years ago, I transitioned into the energy space, and it has been a personal commitment of reading and learning and trial by error. We've got one last question It's a comment that says passion, research, adaptability, well stated. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Kiliadile. Thank you, everyone who participated in the webinar and asked questions. Your questions enabled us to enrich the conversation, and we are grateful for that. I would like to wish you a good evening, a good morning, a good afternoon from wherever you have dialed in. Thank you for joining us. We've come to the end of our webinar.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.